All right. Everybody, my name is Nicole Witham. I am the statewide coordinator for the WSU Food Systems Program. I'm here today to help two ladies that are going to be presenting with us. Diane, first of all, is from Skagit County Extension and is also a member of our food systems team. And Mardi Solomon with Whatcom Farm to School. These ladies have been collaborating with each other for a bit on a project for the Whatcom Community Needs Assessment or Food Assessment. And basically, just before we get started, I wanted to just let everybody know kind of the goal of this First Friday Food Systems Focus event. And this is something that we came up with to help feature the work of our many partners and stakeholders and food system team members throughout the state of Washington. And basically helping bring together this community of people that often get to work together but don't necessarily to see or even hear about the projects that one another is doing. So a lot of the projects that you'll see presented somehow relate to one or many of our focus areas. 7 focus areas for the food systems program. I'm trying to see if there we go. These are our 7 focus areas, and we have a number of faculty, staff, and partners who work in many of these areas. Today, I think we'll be talking a lot about equitable access and just the overall culture around food system and food access. So with that being said, I'm going to hand things off to Diane and Mardi and let them share one of the projects they've worked on. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Nicole. I'm Diane Smith. I work with the Skagit County Extension Office. I'm the Regional Food Access Specialist for both Skagit and Whatcom County. I've been having some difficulty hearing. So I guess I'm going to ask Nicole, if someone can't hear me, let me know. Am I coming across okay? Great, okay, got a heads up. Okay, so good afternoon. We're going to be sharing information that about the community food assessment that was started actually about 11 years ago in Whatcom County. And today we're going to cover 3 areas. One, we're going to talk about the history and the process that this community went through in assessing the food system from field to fork to food disposal. In Whatcom County, we're going to describe the creation of a document, and this is a living document. We call it the Whatcom County Community Food Assessment. This document highlights sections of the project since not all community food assessments are the same. Different emphasis, different players. Every community food assessment will have a different focus. And so what we want to do is share with you today what is different or special about the Whatcom and what lessons we have learned. The common elements that are consistent across all community food assessments is that it's a snapshot in time. So we reflect on what's happened before, we take a picture, and then we can plan and project into the future how we want our food systems to look. It represents multiple viewpoints depending on what sector you're in and what community. And it is used to identify gaps and opportunities for improvement. So the 3 common denominators: 1, it's a snapshot in time; 2, it's a reflection of many viewpoints; and 3rd, it helps to identify gaps and opportunities to move the community forward. We've seen incremental changes over time, and as I was talking to Mardi in preparation for this presentation, I was taken aback to realize how far we've come in 10 years, and it seems the expression the days are very long, but the years pass very quickly. We've accomplished a lot, but in the process, it sometimes feels like we were weighed down. The second thing we're going to be doing is talking about best practice and collaboration, what we found worked, and then we'll have a chance to engage you to see what's working in your community, what point you're at and how you can move your process forward. And then third, we have a couple of examples of the outcomes and the benefits or the collective impact that we've seen because of this work. I'm going to start with a brief timeline for our community assessment, and then Marty's going to share with you more of the details. So it was back in 2007 where WSU convened a group of stakeholders. There was a lot of interest at the time, or curiosity, I would say, more than anything, of what is a community food assessment. At that time, there was a growing concern about food equities, about farmland being lost, and so what could the community do to make sure that farming remained viable and equitable food was a priority in the community. So through technical assistance and training, the Heifer International provided a 2-day training on the how-to process back in the fall of 2007, and then a steering committee formed as an outgrowth of this. This was really the catalyst or the beginning to have those conversations of building relationships around different sectors of the food system. A logic model was designed or planned. This was a tool that allowed for goals to be established and a baseline to be identified. And then through the next 2 or 3 years, data was collected, indicators were identified, themes were identified, and the final write-up of the 2011, or the final write-up of the community food assessment was completed in 2011. Colleen Burrows, who used to work as the pest management person at WSU Whatcom, is really critical and key to creating the final document. Drew Betts also worked on this project in terms of bringing the stakeholders together to convene. And I encourage everyone to go back if you're interested in initiating your own community food assessment. This is the 2011 is an excellent document to use as the basis. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mardi, and she's going to talk about the themes around the community food assessment and the process of pulling our partners together.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So again, I'm Mardi Solomon, and I'm one of the coordinators of Whatcom Farm to School, and I've also been on the planning and development teams and the steering committee for the Whatcom Food Network. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about the Whatcom Food Network, and then I'm going to give you a tour of the community food assessment. The Whatcom Food Network grew out of that initial community food assessment that Diane just described, because I'm going to say CFA, Community Food Assessment. I'm just going to shorten it up. So CFA is, it was kind of a catalyst. It helped us understand that the food system is vast and had a lot of players in Whatcom County, but they weren't always talking to each other, and they weren't always well coordinated, even if they were working on toward related goals or objectives. So out of that recognition, in about 2010, we started a conversation about trying to increase coordination, communication, and collaboration among the many players of the food system, and that's how the Whatcom Food Network was born. The diagram that you see in this slide is how we try to illustrate what the Whatcom Food Network looks like. In the center are the basic goals, and that triangle in the middle is the Whatcom Food Network coordinating team and the steering committee. That's our main goal, is like we're trying to increase collaboration and participation. And then the bigger goal areas, the circles, are social justice, thriving economy, and environmental stewardship. That's what we're working toward. The small words all the way around that are specific goals in each of those goal areas. And then the big circle on the outside are all the sectors of the food system. And you see the whole cycle there continues. So Diane, if you go forward one. or can I control this? I don't know if I can. Oh, I think I might be able to. I'll try. Okay. So the activities of the Whatcom Food Network here are listed here on this slide, and you can see that update the food assessment is something that we took on. As Diane explained, that initial document was really excellent, but we didn't, the food system kept growing and changing, and we also wanted to try to capture what happens when you actively work to increase communication, coordination, and collaboration among the players in the food system. Can we make progress there, and what kind of things shift? So in 2000, well, we started in 2013 or 12 or 13 to update the CFA. Another goal of that at that time was to try to make it more accessible to people, because the 2011 one was a document. It was available. It is still available as a PDF online. It's really thick and it's not interactive. And so we wanted to have something that was more interactive. We wanted it to be web-based. So that was our a major goal of that update, in addition to seeing what had changed and what progress had been made in our food system in addressing some of the gaps that were identified in that initial CFA. We did the whole thing again, and we finished it right at just recently, really, this 2017 CFA update. Again, we made a new website. We wanted it to be even better and more interactive and more clear and easy to update. And we wanted to see what had changed since the previous, since 2013. So now let me just give you a little overview of what the CFA includes. There's actually a PDF version, you can get online on the whatcomfoodnetwork.org site. You can get a report, a written CFA, or this interactive one like I talked about, where you can click through and see the different pieces. The basic pieces that are there are listed here on this slide, and at least on my screen, the bottom one's cut off. That says resources at the very bottom. Now I'm going to just talk through the process that we went through to do this CFA update in 2017. It was a little different than what we had done in 2013. And it was, I will say, it was a bit cumbersome, but we felt pretty good about the results that we got from it. So the way we started is we had a fabulous grad student from Western Washington University, Maisha Jones, who conducted key informant interviews with one or two key informants from each of the sectors of the food system. So each of the parts on the outside of our Whatcom Food Network diagram. She drafted a sector summary. The person who was interviewed reviewed that, and then the Whatcom Food Network Steering Committee, of which Diane and I were members. Well, Diane and I were both on the steering committee and also on the Community Food Assessment Update Committee. So we reviewed it and edited. Then we had a group that represented that sector review the summary and add to it. And then we edit it again. Then we had a review by representatives of other groups that we called ground truthing groups, where there were other groups that are working in that sector, and said, what do you think of this sector summary? And we edited it again. Then the Whatcom Food Network Steering Committee had another chance to review and edit again. So this went on a long time. It took us 1.5 years to do the 2017 update. I will say it took about the same length of time for that 2013 update. So maybe that's just what it takes, regardless of your process. It's a lot of work, but it feels like it's work worth doing for sure. And and I guess you can be the judge when you look at the community food assessment that we created. The CFA has a section that's key findings, where we came up with 5 major themes, and those are listed here. And then within each sector, we also summarized key developments since the previous CFA, the 2013 CFA. This is just a little smattering of, I'm clicking through quickly because I'm just trying to show you what's there, but I hope that you will go to the WhatcomFoodNetwork.org website and really browse it and dig in for yourself. So I'm going to continue to go quickly so we can cover a lot today. Here's more key developments. We did this for every sector. There's the last ones. And then we did a sector overview for every sector. So this one is showing consumption. Each sector overview included key challenges, collaborations, and opportunities. This slide is just showing one of each of those. But it's kind of like a SWOT analysis for each sector of the food system. Then another thing we did is for each of those, this is the 4 goal areas of the Whatcom Food Network that I showed in the diagram, the triangle and the circles. And for each of those, we have indicators of change over time. And the way that we chose indicators is we wanted to have measures that were quantifiable. Sorry, I think I just hit that by mistake. But I go back. Yay, I love having control of these slides on here. This is great. Okay, so they must be quantifiable, collected by an organization on a regular basis. We weren't going to be generating data and collecting data ourselves. We wanted to be able to go to different reports, different organizations, and collect the data easily and on a periodic basis. So, you know, maybe they, depending on what their basis is. Unfortunately, one of our sources is a census that only happens like every 10 years, and so we have some really out-of-date indicators on there. That's unfortunate, but we're gonna, this CFA is a living document. The food system's always changing, and we're always going to be updating what's in there, what's in the CFA as the new information comes along. And thanks to our new website, that'll be easier to do. So that's what the indicators, and here's an example of one indicator that we have in the CFA. It's about the occurrence of youth skipping meals. This is sourced from the Healthy Youth Survey. You can see on the bottom there, and this is a youth survey that's conducted every 2 years, so it met that criteria. We can get the data. That's awesome. And look, we're going to be able to get more data in 2018 because it's every 2-year survey. So here's one of the kinds of things that we've done there with indicators. We also have tried to keep track of all the organizations that are working in the Whatcom food system and divide them up by sector and categorize them by the type of work they do, whether it's technical support, education, or policy and funding work. And finally, we've asked each organization, what kind of resources are really valuable to you in your sector? What kind of reports or articles do you turn to frequently? And then we've made those available online. And again, this is a list that we continue to work on with every time something new comes up. We are going to try and keep the CFA updated. Okay, Diane's going to take it from here.
And thanks, Marty. I think you really point out the fact that this is a living document. our community food assessment changes because our world changes. Different factors and themes come into play. Emerging issues need to be addressed. And by having a current community food assessment, we're able to make sure that the food systems for our community members is viable and is responsive. The piece, both Marty and I came late to the table, so to speak. I joined the group in 2014, just after the 2013 needs assessment was completed. And I participated in the 2017 update. And I also participated in many other collaborations, networks, coalitions. And I was intrigued and impressed with how this particular coalition network, Whatcom Food Network, was able to create such a powerful impact, a collective impact in the community. So I started doing research and study about, well, what makes this collaboration so successful, and found some research that supports those elements and parameters that are needed. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about what they were. So as you go back into your community and you try and replicate a CFA, you can see where you're at along that continuum of a collaborative process. And so I'm going to go through each of the 6 key elements, and then I'm going to allow you to, with Nicole's help, allow you to poll and see where you're at along that continuum. The first of the elements is environment, and this also looks at readiness. How ready is a community to take on a new concern or a new issue? Back in 2007, there was emerging issues around food security as well as land use. So there was a ripe time for us to be able to move forward with this. There was relationships already established. There was a political will and a climate that made this possible. And so the readiness was in place that was then followed by other parameters. So thinking about your current situation, when you're thinking about your readiness in your community, how likely are you to be able to move forward? If it's 1, so you have on the polling, you'll have a chance. I think I can do polling. No, I think I do that. So if it's 1, you're significantly.
Sorry.
You're significantly down. Oh, that's okay. So number 1, so if number 1 is your answer, you're significantly challenged. You're just not ready. You don't have the political will in your community. It could be an area of a challenge or a barrier, but you're working on to resolve it. Number 3 is you're doing relatively well in this area, but there may be some need for improvement before you take that next step. So you want to make sure that you're ready so that you can build on successes rather than stumble over some of the barriers. And so number 4 is, yep, we've got this one down. We've got the strength. We're ready for collaborative effort. So I thought if this works, Nicole is going to help me with a poll, and I'm going to ask you to think about your readiness to start a community food assessment, and then mark your response 1 to 4. 1 being not ready at all, 4 ready to hit the road.
So hopefully you should see there is a polling response button at the bottom of your screen. Everyone who is engaged, and mark the response. A lot of 2s coming in, Diane. Do you see it?
Mm-hmm. I see that. So effort, so at a 2, that would be describing an opportunity where you can move forward, get the community ready before you, oh, thank you, you even have the lines, that's great. So that you can see being ready makes a difference. In my experience, sometimes it just takes a change in administration at the county level to be able to have a champion at the table to help us move forward. Something like that can go a long way. And if you're waiting for something to happen, sometimes giving yourself permission. It's not the right time yet or the right environment. The next is membership characteristics. Whatcom Food Network was very intentional about making it open to members of organizations, so that as folks changed positions, the organization was still committed and would send a representative to participate in the conversation. So that was a very important intentional membership design. We've had, Mardi and I were talking about the number of people who have gone through the Whatcom Food Network and the Community Food Assessment, and there's a whole host of characters who have contributed. Continually, it has had solid support because of the membership characteristics. Initially, it was Washington State University, Sustainable Connections, and the Whatcom Public Health Department that were key leaders. That has shifted because of job responsibility changes, and now Sustainable Connections and the Food Co-op are taking a larger leadership role. So when you think about membership characteristics as you participate in coalitions or any work around food systems, how would you rate your readiness for that? Is it significant challenge? Do you not have a collaborative interest yet? Is there a barrier, but you're working towards resolving it? Are you doing relatively well, or do you have membership, that representative cross-section, mutual respect, and collaboration well established? So I'll let you choose 1 to 4.
Don't be shy, everyone. If you want to just say, go ahead and
Yeah.
1 through 4, 1 being there are significant challenges. If this says, oh, I may have screwed something up. Let's try.
Oh, okay.
There we go. So it looks like 3.
Okay. So having that mutual respect and understanding is doing relatively well, and you can build on that mutual respect and the partnerships that have been developed. The next, thank you, the next element, and there's 6 elements, the next is the process and the structure. From the very get-go, the collaborative nature, the relationships that were being built around understanding the food system was highly valued. Everyone had a stake in the process as well as a stake in the outcome. There were multiple layers of decision-making at the coordinating council, steering council, and at our at forums that we held as we brought people together. Clear roles and policy. I remember when I started, I got a handbook that let me know when the meetings were, what the vision was, what had gone before, and adaptable. There was always an opportunity to learn more and make changes in the process. So as you're thinking about your coalitions or where your food community food assessment work group is, if you have one, or any coalition around food systems, as you're looking at that, I'd like you to rate where you think you're at in terms of the process and structure. Is it a challenge? Do people feel like no one has an equal voice? Are you resolving problems? Are you doing relatively well? And do you have that, or number 4, do you have that shared stake in the process and the outcomes with multiple layers of decision making? So we'll let you vote where you think you're at. Okay. Okay. So it looks like, I don't want to hurry you, but you can see that 2, so we've got a little bit of work. There's challenges and barriers, but it looks like it, with some improvement or work to resolve it, folks can move on and become a viable coalition or a collaborative. The next is communication, and we've been very successful with open and frequent communication. The Whatcom Food Network holds forums twice a year to share information about different food sectors. The process for the community food assessment, as you heard from Mardi, was iterative. We had lots of focus groups going to stakeholders, identifying key folks that may have a perspective, and when we didn't always see that picture the same way, when there was conflict, we were very strategic about making sure we understood everyone's frame. It was a very open and transparent communication. We used both formal and informal strategies. At one time, we used to have a Whatcom Food Network newsletter, an electronic newsletter that went out. So we pushed out information. Now we have the web page where people can come in and retrieve information as they're needing it. So communication was vital in making sure that the community food assessment not only was developed, but then also shared out to the larger community. And with that information, gaps and opportunities could be identified. So again, think about your coalition and how would you rate where you're at in this particular element of communication? Okay. So we're doing pretty good there. We've got 2 with 3 and then 2 that could use some more improvement. Building relationships is what it's all about, and communicating in a transparent and having different ways of communicating, either by paper, by having meetings, by having electronic information. That way we meet all of the different styles of how people like to hear things. The second to the last is the vision, purpose, and goals. Why is it that we're all coming together? Are these concrete and attainable? When we gather in 2007, there was this emerging issue, and it's through time, through that communication, the work of the process, that the vision was clarified, that the purpose and goals were articulated, and it was shared by the community. The goals and the vision are listed not only on the web page, but also on the community food assessment. And then the mission and goals of the collaborative group could differ, at least in part, in form of the missions and goals and approaches of member organizations. And so there's different organizations that participate that may have different visions and goals, but they share the vision and goal of a viable food system that is fair and equitable to all eaters in Whatcom County. So where are you at with your community vision goals? A lot of time can be spent, setting up goals and a vision or mission statement. So I encourage you not to use that as a stumbling block. Think about where you're at. Are you challenged by that? Are you still working on what is our goal? Where are we going? Or are you feeling like, yep, we all know we want to go there, and then the pieces just need to be put into place? So on a scale of 1 to 4, where do you think you're at? Oh, how wonderful. We've got lots of 3s. And that shared vision really does make a difference when it comes to moving a community forward, increasing awareness. And then the last element are resources. And I don't know if there's one. They all contribute to a success of a collaboration. You can't have one without another. And this has been well well documented in the research that collaboration takes more than just one thing. But I have to say, having the resources and the backbone organization really does make a difference. Are there sufficient funds? The Community Food Assessment, there was an interest, and then funds came from the Heifer Foundation to be able to provide some technical assistance and to sponsor a 2-day workshop. And that was the catalyst that got people talking. And then there was a meeting in Seattle where a group went down and attended, and again, they had resources supported by the organization to attend the meeting, and they came back really energized and wanted to go to that next step and create and work on the community food assessment, have it documented, and identify how those gaps and opportunities could then build on work that needed to be done. So sufficient funds being grants, and then a skilled convener. We have some incredibly talented folks on the Whatcom Food Network, Holly and Adrian, 2 of them, who have guided the process of thinking through, facilitating and thinking through how we are looking at the food system and challenging. They really kind of challenge our thinking so that we move to that next step. So when you think about,
Sorry, Diane. I also just wanted to mention, we forgot to mention so far, I think that the Whatcom Community Foundation funded the initial community food assessment, and they fund me to be at the table and Holly, and they funded support for the updates, both updates.
Yeah.
So they've been
yeah, and those are it's not a lot of money, but it's enough to help us because otherwise we're all volunteer, and after a while we lose steam. We also had the access of the Western Washington University interns. So that's another resource that was available to us. So thinking about your resources in the community as you're thinking about doing a community food assessment, where would you say you're at from 1 to 4? Do you find that you're challenged in this effort, or are you closer to having a strength in regard to this collaborative component? Okay. So funds can be a barrier, and you have to become very creative as far as how to be able to sustain this work over time. So those are the, okay, thank you. So those are the key elements to collaboration, and I can send Nicole the write-up of these so that you can look through that information as you're working with your groups back in your communities. I wanted to share with you some of the outcomes and the collective impact that we've realized because of this effort. As we've said, this started in 2007, and who would have thought that we would have actually had food policy written into the comprehensive plan? We worked with the steering committee. There was someone on the committee who was working in the planning department, and he helped us craft the wording, let us know the time frame. He was a champion so that we knew when to put in our request, who to talk to, and now food policy is part of the Whatcom Food Comprehensive Plan. The other outcome is the multi-agency collaboration. As I mentioned, we may not all be working, we all have our own missions and visions, but collectively, as we work together, we can create a ripple effect. And in this case, we created a new strategy implementing the double up bucks at the farmers markets. This really allowed us to see how we aligned our goals, how we shared the metrics that we talk about, and then how these relationships can build and improve the systems that environments, and policies that we implement in our communities. And the third, but not last, we have a lot. You go into the Whatcom Food Community Food Assessment, you'll see all the other outcomes, which are really wonderful. But the last is a food system planning group. This is under the Public Health Advisory Board, and it is looking how food systems can be part and parcel with the community a health plan. And so those are 3 outcomes that demonstrate the collective impact of just that one small idea. Hey, let's see what's going on in our food systems. Let's see where our gaps and opportunities are. And then from that, continuously working together, we were able to create this collective impact. Next slide. So you can go to the website, whatcomfoodnetwork.org, and there's information about the food system there as well as the other activities. The community food assessment was systematic. It allowed us to see where our strengths and weaknesses were. It was a process, and one thing that was nice is because of the relationships, we would encourage each other along the way, that we were making small but significant steps forward. It's a snapshot in time, a community food assessment. Once it was interesting as I was writing up the document, the fish. So we were doing the fish section, and we had it all almost tidied up. And then the fish, there's a salmon breach up in off of Lummi Island. And so it's like, oops, sort of like a, how did I describe it, Marty? It was a photo bomb. It's like, oh my goodness, something else happened. Well, we've got to make sure that we include that in the assessment. And so it's continually changing. And then that allows us to go back and say, well, what do we need to respond? What else is emerging? And then this is a snapshot. It represents many viewpoints. Lots of different people have input and frames that they want to share, and we need to make sure that they are represented in the assessment. So with that, I am going to open up for discussion. I'm going to ask Marty if she has any last comments or things to share. Okay.
No, well, didn't.
Okay, so we will open it up for questions or conversation.
Just go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself and use your audio if you'd like. You can also raise your hand or send a message in the chat box. Okay, well, I have a quick question. Just in terms of, you kind of covered this, but it seems like when you said it was the right time, it was the right energy, and the right people were coming together. Would you also say that just the culture within Whatcom or area politically, there was the motivation to make headway in this area, and like acknowledgement that there needed to be some significant changes or research?
That ethos around, I was just going to say that ethos around improving the community. I think there is something there which made that readiness. Marty, what would your thoughts be?
Yeah, I think so too. And I do think a major factor was the in kind of keeping things going and really building momentum. Well, I think WSU had some vision around it, but then I think that the Whatcom Community Foundation's Sustainable Whatcom Fund Committee came together and wanted to put money, really, they wanted to put money into how to preserve farmland and how to increase access to healthy and local food by Whatcom families. And the community food assessment was really a pretty critical piece in helping them set direction. They wanted this background data. So they encouraged WSU both with funding and like nudging, come on, we really need this, and helping to kind of guide the vision for that first CFA, and seeing the value of continually updating that information so that they can use it for planning where to put resources in strengthening our local food system.
And so I have a question for the audience. Is anyone who's on the conference on the call, is anyone working on a community food assessment currently? And if so, what is it? What are you doing?
I don't hear anyone picking up right away here, but I would say that recently I've been in some meetings with the Food Policy Forum. Oh, here Liz says, we are a small group of volunteers with a diverse idea for a first collaborative project. Can we build a successful long-term food access network without everyone being on board? Maybe we should be doing an assessment first.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of a difference between a needs assessment and a community food assessment. And in that, it would be interesting to explore what would be the best kind of way to go at it for Liz's goals. The community food assessment isn't a needs assessment, but in the CFA is a place for gaps. And so it's kind of part needs assessment, but with trying to enhance food access, you may, I just would want to know more about what your goals are, but it may be a needs assessment that you'd like to do.
And there is a group out of Oregon, the Oregon Food Bank, will support small communities in what's called a feast, which is a bringing folks together, stakeholders, and it doesn't always represent all of the food sectors, but it's a group of interested parties to see how they can improve the food system or the access to food. And that's called Feast, and the Oregon Food Bank supports those. So you may be interested in looking at that as a model.
That's good.
This here says, we have done 2 assessments in the past, but not current, and didn't come out of the current group. So that's kind of an interesting caveat too. You guys spoke about there was part of the plan was to redo the plan or to continually reassess and have it be a living document. What happens, and there was energy at one point and now it's a completely new group? How can you, what are some suggestions for picking up where there's already work that's been done, but really
I'll give one response to that, Diane. You might have more, but when we started out each community food assessment committee, they were new people. Like, I wasn't involved in the first CFA, but I did the next 2, and I think I was the only person in our group, in the 2017 group, who had been involved previously. But what we tried to do is replicate at least some of what had been done in the previous assessment, so we could use it as a structure, and forming those identifying the indicators and trying to track those over time is one example. Another is the kind of questions that we were asking, trying to focus on key developments, opportunities, collaborations, and challenges. Just maintaining that structure through all of the CFAs was a way to build continuity, even if the people involved were totally different people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the value of having it a written document that identifies our methodology. We did an extensive review in our write-ups about how we did it. So it's not, it had the list. It also has the list of questions that you can replicate in your community.
Great. Well, thank you so much, ladies. I think we're gonna take this opportunity to wrap it up. Liz just asked, will this presentation be available afterwards to share with others? Yes.
Okay.
Just in the next few days, I will be kind of converting this, and we will post it to our WSU Food Systems YouTube channel, so you can find this entire presentation there. If you do have a specific request for slides and would like to get those directly from Diane or Mardi, please feel free to contact me. My email is nwitham, WITHAM, @wsu.edu, and you can me directly and I can help connect you. with that, I'm going to sign off and say thank you very much to everyone. And I hope you have a lovely weekend.